And we are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of our weekly podcast. FreudenFreude brings you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
I am Sandra Corona,
And I am Claudia, and
and
we
we are
coaches.
coaches.
There we go. There we go.
So, I am a coach for leaders, for young professionals, and for the neurodiversity community.
And I am a professional coach working with individuals, entrepreneurs, leaders, as well as their teams in tech and beyond.
Great. So, what is the topic for today, Claudia?
Okay, so we were actually struggling for quite a bit with the title of the show,
Yeah.
but I think we talked about this briefly yesterday, and we decided on life is temporary and revisiting materialistic permanence. Wow, what a mouthful! And maybe you want to give a brief introduction, what led us to this particular topic.
Alrighty. So, thank you for that opportunity. You know, with the move, a lot of things came to mind. First and number one, when I left to live overseas, um, I was still, let's say, young in my 30s, and I was not thinking about anything other than the adventure, what was to happen and all this kind of stuff. We left with the bare necessities, right? Because we knew that we would have to buy new appliances, everything you have to do living overseas in the other side of the world. And so I didn't think much of it. Now things have changed. Now I am in my 50s. Yes, I have no problem with saying my age. And you start thinking once you're packing, you start thinking about the 9 years that I was in Saudi, all the things that I accumulated, and then making decisions of the things that I no longer need and the things that I can live without, right? And one of the reasons why I connected my move with this topic is because I was scrolling through YouTube. I don't know, for some reason I do that. And I came across the short about this person saying that one of the questions that a lot of us that want to be practical in the things that we buy is that we ask ourselves, do I need this? Okay. But she is suggesting that actually the question that we should be looking to ask ourselves is, can I live without it? Okay. And most of the times, and I don't have a percentage, that's why I'm saying most of the times, the answer is yes. And I thought about the pandemic. I thought for 2 years, how many of us couldn't get stuff because we passed through the 1 year of the pandemic, right? Lockdown, nothing can be ordered, anything. And we started appreciating the things that we had. We didn't need to buy anything. The entire world noticed this. You don't need anything other than what you have. And then the year after, it was really hard to get a hold of things, right? As you started kind of saying, oh, it would be nice to have this. So you want it, but do you need it? Can you live without it? And then we forgot all about it. Let's be honest, also, Claudia, because we learn things and then we forget like 2 or 3 years later about that experience. And then we're like, oh, I didn't expect that perhaps to happen when you already had the experience, right?
I,
It's just that we forget about things. And so that's what prompted to me to say, oh my God, that was my experience coming back. The things that you can live without. And I want to continue thinking that because I'm no longer getting any younger. So now I'm going to give you the floor so that you can say your side of it.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it is absolutely true, and I think you brought this chain of questions quite nicely together, because often a lot of people already see like they don't even get to do I need this, but they already stop at I want this, right? Do I want this? And I think then already going into do I need this? And then can I actually live without it? Which I think is a really powerful question. If we bring it back to the permanence and transience of material goods, I think that maybe a lot of expats can relate to this, that when you go on assignment, and we don't even need to talk expats. I mean, think back to college days. A lot
Yeah.
of young people go somewhere else for a number of years to college, and you know that it's not going to be forever.
Hmm.
So you know that it's a temporary move, a temporary living situation. And that really, I think, also you relate to the things differently. I mean, you might prefer to have certain things, but because you're not going to be there forever, it is, you can do without. A very simple example, for instance, not last year, the year before, I spent 5 weeks in Italy.
Hmm.
So my father's family is from over there, so we own still an apartment over there. It's like half the grandparents' house,
Hmm.
essentially. So it is there, but it's bare bones, essentially. Nobody really lives in that apartment full time during the year.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of things that you're kind of used to. For instance, having a microwave, even a small one, would be
Yeah.
really nice, really
Mm.
nice. And
Agree.
right, because yeah, I mean, you're used to microwaves nowadays. You can reheat things at the spur of the moment. They're also not really expensive. You can get a small microwave for like 60 euros or something like that. So it's not even the money thing. And then you're like really there. Do I want this? Yeah, but do I really need it? Can I really live these few weeks out of the year without that microwave? Right? Because you know that it's a temporary situation.
Mhm.
Coming back to the apartment or coming back to your permanent home, maybe from a temporary expat assignment, you know that you're left in your nest. Okay. It's like your permanent residence and things like that. And there you might absolutely not want to go without a microwave because
Mhm.
you know it's kind of your forever home. Yeah. Or however long your visibility horizon is in time,
More
right?
than 4 years, let's put it that way. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I think that fundamentally we have a different relationship with material goods.
Hmm.
We think permanence versus transience in terms of our living situation.
Hmm.
And uh, I have struggled with too much stuff my entire life.
Hmm.
Personally. My mom had a lot of stuff. She couldn't get rid of anything. And my dad is a big tinkerer. He keeps everything that can possibly come in useful in the future as well. And I'm a big accessorizer, and I'm also not having a good track record of getting rid of things. Granted,
Hmm.
when I repatriated, I got rid of about half of what I owned as well. So if push comes to shove, I can do it. But in everyday life, to just dump stuff that are still perfectly good, perfectly usable, have some at least perceived monetary value, I'm not that good at it. Okay. So it's something that I have thought a lot about, have read a lot about. And so I kind of came to question yesterday as we were discussing this. Ultimately, we're all on this earth temporarily. That's part of the title. Life is temporary. Okay. So if we were to approach our whole life as this temporary assignment,
Mhm, mhm.
how would our relationship to material goods change?
That is a good question because the moment that you're asking that question right now, it's like, whoa, wow. I don't know. I think it could be two things. I think it could go both ways. I'm sorry. You can either enjoy as much as you can and get a hold of all the things that you can while you can, right? Or you can actually appreciate what you have and see it as if you are also, let's say, in what's it called, if you're temporary, this is temporary as well, right? So you're thinking, I'm going to appreciate everything that I have, or I don't know. It's a question. It's a really good question. For me, like I was telling you yesterday, now that I'm thinking about my age, I'm starting to think that everything now has a value. I want to appreciate everything. I know that things, you cannot change something, right? Um, and and I want to at least give everything a useful life, the freedom, the opportunity to exist and to be now, whereas before it never crossed my mind.
Right,
So,
right. It's actually a very interesting perspective, I think, into all of this, that it and of course it makes you, if you say life is temporary, it brings back to the forefront also your own mortality, right? I
mhm,
mean, let's be real. It comes
yeah.
to all of us, like, nothing is real like death and taxes, but it's gonna come somewhere. And it I really think that it's, if you look at it, the stuff, so much of the stuff, it's only meaningful to us, right? I have had, in the US, I helped clear out colleague's apartment after he unfortunately passed of cancer. And he had already really gotten his things in order and things like that, as he got worse. But in the end, there's still your apartment to get rid of, to empty out, to dispose of all the stuff and things like that. So a group of friends got together. He was a single man, a gentleman, and he didn't really have family. So, a group of friends got together to handle all of that for him. And, so there were things that he obviously cherished. They were still around, they were well kept, they were well organized, but they had no meaning to anybody else. They were special only to him. And it made me realize, quite some things. First of all, I mean, a lot of the things that we tend owning, and I'm generalizing here because, everybody has different relationships to stuff, but it is not really all that special. It's not really all that personal. It does not, have this kind of thing. And then also it puts our stuff in perspective to the rest of the world. Okay. Um, and I know of people that have these really sentimental items and they expend a lot of energy and a lot of money into moving those things and so on. I knew a lady who had this fantastic grand piano, but it was her deceased husband's grand piano. And she shipped that thing from apartment to apartment that she owned at great expense, and not necessarily to the benefit of the piano because it's not that great for these instruments to move so much. Um, you know, and she didn't even play. Meaning it was this huge, like, sentimental thing that was part of her husband's legacy. And so, how would this just think that this instrument did its job for her husband. How
Mhm.
much meaning did she give it, to as a memory of her husband? How could she have honored it maybe differently? Because she also now is, nearing her 80s, and she has this big instrument there to take care of, to pay for, because her apartment is not that big, so this huge instrument takes a lot of her real estate. So how much of this now is affecting her actual life in terms of space and cost and insurance and all these kind of things? uh, so to offset memories and attachments with just recognizing that when she's gone, her daughter's going to sell it anyway, because the daughter lives, and on the west coast, this lady lives on the east coast, and so on. So it's like realizing how much you really pay, not only monetarily, sorry, but also in terms of mental resources and so on for this thing. And she has mentioned to me that this piano is in some ways a burden, and yet she could let it go, because ultimately she's also in this see, it's not permanent in terms of the continuation of the family. She holds onto it just for herself. It's
Mhm.
not going to stay permanently over generations as an heirloom for the family. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking is that, and this is what came to mind because I'm thinking, what makes a person, and just in general, what makes a person hold on to something? Well, number one, it's sentimental because it means something. That's the reason why you bought it. And then two, the monetary or the financial uh, connection that you have with that object, right? Because to you, when you see it, you're going to see it as a mouse. To me, it was a $50 mouse or whatever. And I'm going to like it because now I bought it, and I'm going to keep it until it dies. Now that is my decision. So then I'm thinking, well, what would make somebody want to keep this mouse on the day that I leave? Because I can leave tomorrow, this world, and something's going to have to happen to this mouse. So I'm thinking, what could cross the mind of a person like the lady that you're talking about to say, I'm ready to give my piano? Because apparently it's been many years that she's been holding on to that piano. And what could have kept her from giving it away or selling it or what? I'm thinking that sometimes some objects, for me to get rid of this mouse, somebody has to come sit down on this desk and say, wow, I love this mouse. It's so beautiful. And then I'm going to say, I appreciate it, so that the day that I feel that it's time for me to start getting rid of things, I can tell this person, hey, here's this mouse. Do you want it? And then I can give something, because you have to give the opportunity for other people to own something,
Right, right.
right? You feel that they appreciate it. It's okay. Let me put it this other way. This is probably a little bit, it's, it's going to sound like I'm going on a different direction, but it's not. This is how I see it. This is my connection. I love dogs. You know that. I have 4 huskies. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is, for me, it should be illegal, and this is my PSA, that it should be illegal for people to sell dogs on the side of the road. Number one. Two, I'm thinking, can you imagine the dog mother? Because a lot of people don't think that animals don't have feelings. How she's seeing that other people are taking their puppies away and not coming back with them. Number one, as the person that is selling those puppies, you have no idea if the person that is taking that puppy is going to appreciate the fact that you're giving something so precious like a life, even if it's an animal, right? And so I'm connecting that thought. It's a higher value. Okay. I want you to understand. I'm putting a life of an animal, of a human, like the sky's the limit. Okay. There's no value to that. But I'm thinking in a lower scale, I'm thinking that's the same way I feel about my stuff now. That in order for me to give it away, I have to make sure that the person that I'm going to give it to is going to see the value in it.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think that now for me, I'm starting to think about what I do before I click buy or, put it in my cart, because I've learned, because this is not my first move living in Saudi. This is not my first move. I've moved to other countries before, but this was the biggest move. Let's say that it was the one that lasted longer. And I did, again, it also had to be with age. It had to do a lot of me not worrying about, I'm going to spend this because I want it. Now I'm thinking, again, do I need it? Where am I going to put it?
Yeah.
I mean, is it really worth for me to give up this space? Just because I have the space doesn't mean that I have to buy it, you know? And I have to find practical ways to use other things. Let's say this lighter. We all know that these freaking lighters, and forgive me for saying that, but I don't find it to be aggressive, the word, but lighters can be refilled, and yet none of us do it. We know that as a fact, they can be refilled, and yet what do? We throw them away. This lighter, my sister gave it to me. So now for me, it has become something important. Next time that I see that it's running out of fuel, I'm actually going to go now and buy the thing that I need for it to be refilled
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
don't need another lighter. I don't need it. That's it. That's all
It's
I need.
it's appreciating things. It's reusing them. It's
Yeah.
repurposing them. I think that
Mhm.
that's a big one as well. Giving them a different life, you know, than that they were designed for, and so on. We have a lot of options. Um, and I think you're right when you talk about these goods. There's, I think we have to distinguish that very often the things that we are most attached to, meaning the ones that we hold on highest, are often the ones that were more expensive or that were in where we were invested more in the purchase of it. Right? Sometimes also I think it's um, the journey that these items have gone with us. There's there is items that are used dearly and loved dearly, let's say, in their use, but in a past life, and that thing is kind of done with, right? For
Mhm.
instance, I'm so sorry. I used to do silversmithing and goldsmithing.
Mhm.
And my torch that I had, was an
Oh,
oxyacetylene torch. I had like all the fancy tips, like the micro, like jewelry tips to go on it and things like that. But I haven't actually soldered anything with it for years. But yet,
mhm.
to get rid of these torch heads and things like that would be really painful.
Yeah.
But there's of course there's a certain monetary thing on it, but let's say we even abstract away from that, but it's like a friend.
Mhm.
It's a friend. And this was something that was mine. In the example earlier was the lady who kept on to her husband's um piano. Sometimes it's even these perceived expectations that other people put on us to
Mhm.
hold on to things.
Mhm.
She might not be able to get rid of it because she thinks her husband would want her to keep it.
She thinks exactly.
Right?
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
thinks that her husband would like her to keep it. And we often see this when kids, for instance, take their unused items back to the attic of their parents' home and things like that, and that the
Yeah.
parents think that they need to hold on to it because they have been entrusted with this stuff, which very often just turns out to be useless junk, frankly. And so I think that the reasons why we hold on to things is multifaceted. The question that I would like to ask here is, and we touched on this transient thing before, life is temporary. We are going to die. And this is not provocative. This is just a statement of
The
fact.
truth. Yeah.
So how does knowing about that we are going to die, affect how our relationship with our stuff? And I think that that's actually a real big one. Knowing that strangers, or worse, our loved ones, need to deal with all these thousands of items that we might have in a big house. You
Yeah.
lived in an apartment now for a while, so it might have been more limited. But I mean, I live in a house that has been a house for the family for a long time. I inherited stuff. I brought a lot of my own things. So there's thousands of items that accumulate, and it can give you gray hairs just thinking about who is going to take care of all that when you pass. Would I really like my husband to need to deal with all that, all my, sorry, pardon the word, but all my crap, all the things that I hold on to it, because even I know that not all my items are necessarily high value or necessarily something that he would appreciate, and not even in some cases something I use right now, like my torch, my jewelry torch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So do you think that that can change how people will relate to their stuff and maybe help them to get rid of it?
No, I think unfortunately it's very cultural. The idea of your relationship with things. Okay, let's put it this way. The Norwegian culture, their culture is very minimalist, very simple and practical, right? And again, unfortunately, comparing it to Saudi, the Saudi culture is the more that I have, the more power I have, and I can show it that I can have power of purchase. Okay, because it's important for me to show it because that's how their culture is. And then you compare it to the American, the Saudi and the American, they're nothing different. It's more about what I can get a hold of and the latest thing that is out there so that I can have it as well. Because if she has it and my neighbor has it and the other person has it, oh my God forbid they come to my house and realize that I have something different,
And
right?
it's the whole
Um,
keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing.
exactly. And then your relationship with things is not going to change because unfortunately a lot of people, sorry, um, are so invested in keeping up with the Joneses that they're never going to unfortunately see the value in something. And that's why we have estates in the US, right? The ones where the family gathers the stuff of the deceased or in life living still, but the person needs to get rid of their things or is ready to get rid of their things. They have like garage sales, but they're actually estate sales because either the person needs the money or these are things after the person has passed away. So that's a clear example of how connected we are to objects, how important it is for us to have things. Let me give you another example. Um, Besides the estate, because it was the weekend and I saw an estate and I was like, it broke my heart because I said, somebody is having to deal with this with their loved ones items and have it to see it all day. And then what you don't sell, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Okay. Most probably Goodwill. That's the truth. But anyways, it's still kind of hard. I'm
Okay.
still heartbroken. Yeah. And then the other example is I lost my train of thought. Shoot. Um, I guess I was telling you that this simple thing, okay, it's a earring case. We had purchased some earrings for my niece, and when they broke into our storage, they took the earrings and they left the little box behind. And I found it after we went to the storage to pick out now our things and bring it to the house. I found it. I put it on the side and I thought, I'm going to throw it away later. And then I remember I had these earrings that my mom gave me. And I had put them here on the desk and I saw it was just right there in front of me. And I saw the earrings and I saw the little box and I said, oh, I'm just going to put it in the little box. And then that's how you start accumulating stuff because you start thinking, if I took the action of putting that little box there and I had my earrings there, oh, wow, I found a use for it. But
Yeah.
then you're going to find a use for when I open this bag and I pull out the wire in it, I'm going to say, but this is a really good quality bag. I can use it for something else. And then you start accumulating it. And then another box, and you can say, oh, but I can use it to patch something. I don't know. We're going to find something. And that's how you start accumulating stuff.
It is true. And this of course the little earrings belong in the little earring box, but you might have right next to it already your jewelry box where all the jewelry actually belongs into, right? So
Exactly.
right now instead of having one large box, you have one large box and a small box. And then
Yes.
you have families of small boxes because you left one jewelry in a small box and then you can everything then needs to go into small boxes and it grows from there, it grows from there.
Yes,
it's,
exactly.
it's
So to answer your question, I don't think people because it's cultural, it's hard unless you actually come with the mentality that you say, I'm okay with what I have. I don't need anything else.
right. There's two things I want to mention here. First of all, I think that this keeping up with the Joneses thing, I actually have an interesting anecdote. We have property around the house, and my
Hmm.
dad, when he buys tools for the property, he usually gets like good quality things. So he had,
Mm.
um, after our initial pressure washer kind of got relegated to the barn and the upper property, he went and he bought this really nice like 150 bar pressure washer, semi-professional
Wow.
thing, right? Because we have a large driveway and it gets pressure washed once or twice a year. So he really wanted something of quality. And then he's the kind of person that can take good care of it. So it's going to have a long life. Okay.
Hmm.
But guess what? After we put the box out, that this pressure washer came in, like
Uh-huh.
on the next big um recycling/trash day, we saw that so many of the other people also had pressure washer boxes out on the curb, right? Not necessarily the same quality than my dad's, but nevertheless they had gotten one or upgraded theirs and so on. What that kind of means is that to some extent you're outsourcing the decision making,
Yeah,
because the question is not anymore, do I need this? Can I live without this? But it's this compulsion to get it because the neighbor has it,
because it's nice to have again.
right? And here in Luxembourg, it's endemic because one of the neighbors had gotten a Porsche, And then later
Oh.
on in the street, two more people had Porsche, and one got, one of the neighbors, he doesn't live here anymore, but he got a Lamborghini, right? It's like you have to like get more and more and more and more to
Mhm,
show exactly that you have that buying power.
mhm.
And so sometimes, it can be making a statement to be slightly revolutionary
Yeah.
not to have it, right?
Mhm.
So that is also a perspective that you can have in it. But these ideas you mentioned, or these things that you mentioned about the estate sales and so on, and the idea of um, loved ones needing to take care of your stuff afterwards. Right now, my dad, he's nearing 86 and he's currently not doing very well. And it occurred to me the other day that right now, even if he wanted to sort through his things, even if he wanted to, pardon my French, put his affairs in order, he wouldn't be able to physically. He doesn't need to do it. He doesn't need to do it, right? I mean, I'm not saying that, but there might be a moment where even if you want to, maybe you can't unless you
Yeah.
have help, or maybe even emotionally it would be too difficult at some point.
Yeah.
Some people do declutter specifically to get down to the things that you really need, that are fundamental to your life now, and become very mindful of of the possessions that you have. And one of the things, for instance, is what they refer to as the Swedish death cleaning.
Right.
It's a
Right.
method, right? I mean, it's exactly that. And it's not only for old people. I have seen testimonials of people on all walks of life and all ages giving this newfound thought to the things. And see, this is different from minimalism.
Yeah.
It's not like you want to reduce as much as you want all your possessions. It is to reduce to what you need and be mindful of what you need, and no excess beyond that. Meaning nobody is going to tell you in that method to get rid of everything just to get rid of it because you have to get down to a certain number of possessions or something like that. You can keep what you need, and also what sparks joy, if I can use a terminology from Marie Kondo. And but nevertheless, to really think this other stuff that's not the things I have an immediate need for, or that sparks really a lot of joy, that's what makes my life worth living, in essence. All that stuff to really take a look at. Can I continue living without it? Do I really, is it so important for me to hold on to this now that I can then ask my loved ones later to dispose of it? So all of a sudden, the cost of holding on to it is not only the cost of you cleaning it, insuring it, storing it, and so on. It's not only the cost to you, but also the cost and effort of the other ones that then have to deal with it after you're gone. Okay. And that, I think, can sometimes be, if you have loved ones you care about, right? Uh,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
or if you do not want to be embarrassed in front of strangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that can sometimes be something that helps people let go of items that they no longer need or cherish. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
I do. And I'm thinking what comes to mind is this guy, again, YouTube or Instagram, I can't remember. We have to think about the power of advertising. Okay. This idea of, like I said before, of wanting what the neighbor has, what my sister has, what that person has, and everything else. How could I not have it as well, has a lot to do with advertising. And I'm going to say this. There's this guy that I also follow on YouTube. He's a Japanese former monk. Okay. I don't know how that happened, but that's what he was. Uh, he was in a monastery, not a monk. I'm sorry. I apologize. And he got married. So his life changed, but then he got a little bit sick and he couldn't leave. And so he made the choice to say, you know what, with my mobility impairment, I need to start making better decisions. And he started getting rid of stuff. And that was easy for him because it made sense because he was sick. However, and here comes the other flip side of me connecting advertising with these kind of decisions. When it comes to health, when it makes sense, you will do what is necessary to be a minimalist, to live better and so on and so on. But if you're not at all in that situation, you're not going to think about it. And here's the thing, you actually only need, let's say, to cook, probably you only need four things. You need a serving spoon, you need a spatula, you need a wooden spoon, and you need something else, a knife or something like that. I don't know, just thinking about four things that you can use to stir your stuff. But then advertising comes in and says, no, 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 but what about taste transfer? What about the idea that you cannot mix this wooden spoon to cook salty foods with caramelized or desserts? God forbid you do that. That's why we have this wonder spoon for you so that you can buy it and have it in your house. And then you start accumulating trash again. Isn't it true? Advertising is not going to allow you in this era of social media where people are so drawn into the latest thing. Because again, God forbid somebody doesn't see that close thing resembling what everybody else has in your house.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
we're always going to question other people's decisions also. That's a big problem as well when it comes to your relationship with money, your decisions about how you live. There's always going to be somebody coming in and judging you for what you have or don't have.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, advertising turns these nice to haves into perceived must haves.
Mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm-hmm,
we all can agree that it would be nice to have the special doodad spoon or whatever, but advertising can rake it up so much, the intensity, that all of a sudden you're convinced you must have it because, after all, that is what's gonna make your food taste good for your family, so you can be happy and live happily ever after, right? As
mm-hmm,
if that
mm-hmm.
really depended on a spoon.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And yeah, absolutely. The it's crazy. And now you also mentioned, and I firmly am aware of this, that the relationship to your stuff is very highly impacted by your relationship to money. I think that for people where money is less of an issue,
Mm-hmm,
that can always have the freedom to replace something if they want to, that they, once they get rid of something, if they want to replace it, they can because they have the money.
mm-hmm,
I think other people, they might, even if it's an item that's not really very expensive, they rather hold onto it and live with uh, the mental or the emotional mental work and the storage and the insurance and the space and all that stuff, because they think, I might not have the money later to buy it. I
mm-hmm,
already have it. And we do that with enough stuff. We end up with a cluttered space because the thing is, we hold on to these sometime maybe items that we might never in a million years actually use. It's all there ready to be used. It has all this potential,
mm-hmm.
but we're not actually using it. Versus just getting rid of it, getting the peace of mind, and then the once in a blue moon item that you discarded, God forbid, you just repurchase it, and within the 1 day or two, you have it back from Amazon, right, in a brand
Yes.
new version. The
Yes.
once in a while thing, because frankly, how often do we go and use these things that we keep just in case?
Yes.
So I truly believe that money plays an issue, especially when it comes to larger ticket items as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Stuff that we spend a lot of money for, but now doesn't have for anybody else no more value. Let me
Hmm.
give you an example. I have a grand piano, and that grand piano, if I were to sell it now, has some intrinsic value, meaning I would get some, reasonable money for it. But on the other hand, we have bought maybe something, uh, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, like let's say a photography lens,
Mm.
right? You
Hmm.
you might have bought it back then, and it might have cost you a lot of money, and it still works. It's still a
So,
lens. If it mounts still on your modern camera, it's a lens. But then on the other hand, nobody is going to give you money for that lens in today's market, because there are much better ones out
oh
there.
yeah,
There's much better
yeah.
glass on there. The cameras are different. Maybe the mounts have changed and things like that. So you might hold on to that lens, even though you never use it, because you spent a lot of money for it in the past.
Hmm.
Even though for everybody but yourself in the world, it is useless now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
so uh, it yeah, money really really plays into it, because I know when I'm trying to get rid of stuff, the how much is it worth question also comes up.
Yes. And let me tell you something that um what changed my relationship with money. Um when my husband bought me my car overseas, I was so happy when I got it. And I'm going to be honest, I did not see in that car at that moment what I would have seen 10 years before. I would have seen if it was the older version of me, I would have said, I'm not gonna drive that trash. Oh my God, that's gonna leave me in the road at any moment. What's wrong with you? I would have flipped. Okay. But sometimes I think it had to do with living under the circumstances and the culture that I was living that made me forget about that old person that I was and appreciate again the things that I actually had. And when I saw that car, I was like, because women were starting to drive. I was like, I have a car because none of my girlfriends had a car. Okay. I was the first lady in the compound to have a car. And all that needed to be done was to get fixed. Well, my husband fixed it. And I invited the ladies to take a ride with me. Well, we had a blast. We enjoyed it. There, do you think that they sat in the car and said, "Ooh, this smells old"? Nobody said anything.
Right, right, right.
Okay. We were all so happy that we were driving and doing it, going down the road. Let's go to the store. And we were, yay. It was a ride to go to the supermarket. Okay. And I learned to love that car. It was a Ford Explorer 1991.
Wow.
Okay. And it was still running. My husband, again, he fixed it up. He did a lot of things to that car. And he just left that car amazing. Okay. And that car was meant for a better life. And I'm going to touch this subject at a later date, but we're going to talk about scamming. Be careful with scamming. A scammer kept my car. And that, again, that's for another story. But I thought that that car was going to have a better life because I knew that I was going to leave. So we wanted to find it a purpose. the same that way that it found a purpose with me and I found a purpose with it. I wanted somebody else to have and appreciate it. Going back to the old lady probably finding somebody that would appreciate that piano. I thought I had found that person. Well, unfortunately not. Now, let's talk about the keeping up with the Joneses, and then we're going to connect the subject. I've been looking at the Teslas. I'm like, it's a nice car. You know, a lot of people now are judging, um, what's his name? The guy that makes Tesla.
Oh, now you're putting
Uh,
but oh, if I hear
uh,
I know it immediate name.
uh,
You caught me
well,
unaware.
anyways, that's way. Well, whatever. The maker of Tesla. Okay. And I see the car and I'm like, it's a funny car, but it's a car. Now it's normal to have that car.
Elon Musk.
What?
Elon Musk.
Alan? No, it's Musk, but the first name it doesn't sound familiar.
El-
Anyways, it's Musk.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Elon. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Elon Musk. You know, they make fun of him because of the cars, because it has had accidents. I'm like, this car is like every other car. Okay, it has accidents like every other car. Anyway, let's look at what I'm trying to say. Have you seen that new car that has come out that looks like an origami design? It's meant to be like an SUV, but from Tesla. And it looks like a car that came out of straight of a sorry, design. It has these patterns like this, and it's, to my eye, it is not aesthetically nice looking. And I laugh at it because it's a weird car. Talking about a relationship with money. I'm thinking these people went there and saw that car, and I'm pretty sure they probably said, oh my God, what a car. But I'm going to get it because it's the latest, right? And probably they had a car just like me, and they discarded that car because they wanted the latest, right? And for me, now that I think about my relationship on that car and having, you know, buying my new car, I'm thinking, I miss my Explorer. I miss my Ford Explorer. I miss it so much. I no longer worry about the brand of the car. For the first time in my life, I'm considering a Honda Civic to be a nice car. That it's Hyundai's and Subarus, and I'm thinking, hey, that's a nice car. I never would have said that 10 years ago, Claudia,
Interesting. Interesting.
because I no longer care what people see in me. Like, as long as I'm comfortable,
And it gets you
as
from
long as,
point to point.
exactly, I don't care if my car doesn't look like yours. I don't care if my car is not a Tesla. I'm driving safely. I'm happy. I'm living my life, like they say. I'm enjoying it.
And you have extra money in the bank as well to top
Thank
it
you.
up. Yes, yes, yes. Actually, since you're talking, you made great points, but since we're talking about cars and we're talking about permanence versus transience, when I was in college in the US, I didn't really have all that much money. And I went to, one of those wholesale places where
Uh-huh.
even used car salespeople send their cars when they don't sell.
Oh yeah.
So you get them really,
Lot.
they're older and you,
Yeah.
you get them for a really good price. Well, I was in America and I'm a girl from Luxembourg. Okay. So I go
Uh-huh.
to this wholesale place and the guy asked me, so what kind of car are you looking for? And this is what I told him. I want a big American car. That
Okay.
was that was my criterion because in any case to a place like that you go and you look at what they have, you can't really be all that choosy, right? Well, this girl ended up with a 1983 Cadillac Eldorado.
Wow.
It was a beaut, and we drove it for quite a number of years before we gave it to a collector to restore. And so that car, it was old, it was an 83. And so for me, it was like this precious thing that I could still use, while it had life left in it. Was so grateful for that car every day that I drove it, and we loved it to bits. Of course, it had a hood like a queen size bed, and it purred was like, 410 horsepower and all that kind of stuff. It was, V8 and everything. It was like really nice car. And I also appreciated it because I knew that I would probably never be able to drive a car like that again. Eventually, I would maybe go back to Europe, and here you would never even consider getting something like this. And you don't have the streets to cruise with some big ship like that either. So I think there's this sense that it was just for a limited time, and it wasn't necessarily something that you could easily replace.
Mhm. Yes.
Really gave it a sense of being special. And I really think if we look at items with the sense that they will not be there forever necessarily,
Mhm.
we get so much more grateful for them.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
it sparks much more joy. Again, Marie Kondoism. And so, so much stuff gets into, and the topic of today was revisiting materialistic permanence. So I
Yeah.
really think we touched on some points related to that.
Mhm.
um, and if you have nothing else you would like to maybe share here, maybe we should call it a day for today.
I think we're good. I think it was a nice topic. I actually feel like we could talk about this even more. For some reason, I'm like, oh, that's it? Okay.
Yes, and I'm definitely going to walk around my apartment today and take a closer look at things and let it kind of
What
percolate.
sparks joy?
What's joy? What do I need, and what could I live without?
There you go. There
So,
you go. Well, that is very nice. Thank you so much, Claudia. Good news is that in 15, 20 days, we should be having our shipment arriving. So that is where I'm actually going to apply what we're talking about today because I have to get rid of stuff that I never thought I would have to because hey, it's time, right? It's time. So we'll talk about that probably in 15, 20 days.
and interestingly enough, these are things that only a few short months ago you decided to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yep.
paid for to have shipped from Saudi Arabia to the US. So it's very interesting, and I look forward to hearing about that. So
Ah,
everybody, thank you so much for listening in today. We really appreciate spending time with us and listening to our friendly banter about this topic.
yes.
If you got some value out of this and would like to show us some love, subscribe to the channel and otherwise engage with the content. If you want to get in touch with Sandra or myself, our contact information is included in the show notes of this video. And I guess that would be it for today. We will be back again next week with another show. And thank you so much, Sandra. This was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much, Claudia. Bye.
Bye.